Did you know that the banks, the big banks, have $155 billion sitting with the Reserve Bank doing nothing, earning no interest? $155 billion in what they call exchange settlement accounts. Now, how did this money get there? They're printing it. Now, it's terribly gauche in the world of economists to use the term printing money because, of course, governments around the world are printing money in a metaphorical sense. But in the real sense, they're not printing it. The Reserve Bank simply buys bonds from a bank that the bank's bought from the government, and it credits the account, the exchange settlement account, just digitally with $4 billion. It was $4 billion last week on one day alone. New money, fresh money, created, just magically created by the Reserve Bank. Everybody's ignoring this, of course. The Labor Party should be holding the government to account on this. I mean, you can't just create new money, can you? It's precisely what they're doing. Since the coronavirus started last May, there's been $130 billion in new money created by the Reserve Bank. And now there's $155 billion sitting with the Reserve Bank, back with the Reserve Bank, doing nothing because the banks aren't lending it. That's what we call the untold story, isn't it? All this while the poor old job seekers, the people that are trying to get a job, that want to get a job, have been given a measly $4.50 rise in the job seeker allowance, which keeps them well below the poverty line. There's all this argy-bargy over money to be spent on the aged care sector to help Australia's elderly population. They're wringing their hands over a $500 million spend when on one day they created $4 billion in new money. Yet we read in the Australian Financial Review this very day, and here is the leader, the editorial for the newspaper. Our platinum year follows the pandemic year of 2020. In the year like no other, business has been part of the world-leading Team Australia response. Responding to the challenge, and it goes on. Team Australia. The point is here, it's not Team Australia. Team Australia, if we're talking about the business community, is just sitting there with its $155 billion sitting there doing nothing at the Reserve Bank. The reason there is a lot of money washing around the economy is because the government is creating it and because it is throwing $80 or $90 billion at companies via the Job Keeper scheme and other things. It's just saying to companies, we're going to take away your wage bill. We're going to put that on the taxpayer chit. That's why the economy has been going like that, and indeed the stock market. We'll know a little bit more at the end of this month when the JobKeeper, JobSeeker cliffs happen. So $155 billion is sitting there doing nothing because the banks aren't lending it. There's nothing to lend it to. Big businesses are full, interest rates are near zero, credit's abundant. The spokespeople for Team Australia are giving all the credit to business when it's government using your money, which has created the stimulus. Like this video if you'd like us to keep the heat on Team Australia. It's really important at this time when the government has just forced payments out of Google into News Corporation and Nine Entertainment and others, that Australia supports independent journalism. We don't have these subsidised income streams, so thank you to the people already who've supported us on Patreon and who've bought the merch.